Have you been experiencing internal financial struggles triggered by economic concerns? Are you feeling capped at your current income level and can't seem to realize your financial potential? Energy healer Gene Border has created an emotional freedom technique, or EFT, tapping protocol to help calm the inner voice that keeps you stressed. Claim your free copy at geneborder.com/vow and say goodbye to those financial blockages. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Gene Border. It's not just about dreaming, it's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Gene Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast. I have a really cool guest with me here today. This is Wendy Whitus, and we're going to get into her story in just a second. But first, I would like to welcome you all for being here. Some of my clients, I've said this before, but some of my clients are having issues with financial concerns and fears with certain things going on in the economy. And so just as a freebie for everybody, down in the link section of the show notes, you'll find a little bit of a financial help for you. If you're interested in energy work, tapping in particular, there's an EFT tapping protocol that I've prepared, just like 4 quick rounds of tapping. And tapping is just like this. For those of you who've never seen it, it's not anything crazy. It interacts with your nervous system to calm you down and allow things to release so you can be a little bit calmer about the situation. But it's just geneborder.com/vow, V-O-W. And let me know how that goes for you. And now back to the show. So Wendy, I met Wendy through another friend who was also on the podcast earlier. Hello, Wendy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Gene. And I'm so glad that Sandy was able to connect us, and so I can reach your audience. Also, I'm happy to be here.
I get such cool guests. I meet one cool person and they introduce me to somebody else and they introduce me to somebody else. I have met so many new people since I started the podcast.
I bet you have.
Yeah, it's really amazing what people are doing. So talk to us about what you're doing.
Yes. So I'm so happy, and it's a passion of mine to be able to share what I've learned with others. So thank you for another platform to do so. Again, my name's Wendy Whitus. Several years ago, I founded Personal Retreat Day, which is, it was born out of a practice that I did for myself about 12 years ago. I started taking one day every month to do 3 things. And that was to rest deeply, to reflect on the previous month and what all had happened in that month, and then to reorient towards the month ahead. I started doing this month after month after month, and it just made such a dramatic difference in my life, and my personal life, and my career. And during the pandemic, when everyone was locked down and we all had lots of unexpected time on our hands, I started looking at some online courses, and my husband was actually the one who said, you should really take that practice and share it with other people online. And I thought, I'd never occurred to me before. It was just something that I benefited from personally, but it made sense to try to share this with other people and help them. And so I had been going to Creative Mornings, which is a organization for creative individuals, people in creative industries. And I'm a filmmaker by profession. So I had been connected to this audience, but in the pandemic, they grew to a lot of online courses and just sharing. And so I said, sure, let me apply and see if anyone would be interested in learning about, how personal retreat days could help them too. And it was really well received. And so many people said, this is exactly what I need. It just really resonated with people. So since then, it's just kind of organically grown. And I find myself at this point where I'm really shifting into the entrepreneurial world of it. And so turning it more into a business and less of just kind of a side thing that I've done. So slowly growing that business, and eager to share how that's impacted me both in my personal life and in my entrepreneurial life.
It's very interesting. I follow Brendan Burchard. You probably heard of him. He's a coach mindset. Let's improve your world, improve your day, improve your life, improve your business kind of guy. And one of the things that I picked up from him sometime the end of 2023 was that every month should have a focus. And at the end of the month, you look back at the focus and you prepare for the new focus for the new month. And so I've been doing that this year, and it really helps keep you aware of what you want to create, what you did create. And it goes right along with what I find so useful, which is figure out what you want, become aware of where you are, where you want to be, figure out how to get there. So focus on what you need to do and take strategic action to get you there. I mean, that's just what it is in a nutshell. So what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is look back at what you did the last month, see if that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to continue to do, where you want your next focus to be, and then relax, let the stress of the last month go and prepare yourself for the new month. Is that sort of?
Exactly. And that is, this is nothing new, Jean. I mean, we all know these things, right? We know
we don't do it.
We know we need more rest, especially as busy entrepreneurs. We know we need more rest, how to carve that in. We know we need to take lessons from the past, but also celebrate those wins, like you said, those good things that have happened. And we know we need to carve out time to plan out our next steps. But do we do it on a regular basis? So what I call this personal retreat day, doing it month after month, it creates a rhythm of rest and reflection. So you're not just cramming your entire life into one weekend or New Year's Eve and saying, oh my goodness, now I have to look at the whole trajectory of my life or even the past year. It's too long of a chunk of time. And think about, what do I want to accomplish by December 31st? That seems so far away. But if you do this practice month after month after month, it just becomes easier and more natural over time to do those things, to reflect and to reorient, look back, look forward, and most importantly, to take some time just for self-care, whether that's an extended nap, which is what my rest period is sometimes when I need it the most, or even doing activities that are restful in spirit. So it could be a mindful walk in nature or some gentle restorative yoga, meditation, all of the above. But this one day a month just becomes like something you look forward to. It's amazing.
So is it a solitary day, or do you do it with a group of people, or how does this work?
For me, and what I recommend is it is a solitary day. So in the sense of retreat, that word, I like to define the word, actually all of them. Let's do all of them. Personal retreat day. Because personal means your personal retreat day may not look nothing like mine. You have to decide what you need the most. And even from month to month, mine are going to be different from one another, depending on, am I coming from a really busy, full month where I need more rest? Or do I have lots of mental energy to expend on planning my next steps? So personal, that's customizable. It's completely up to you. I have lots of suggestions and kind of like building blocks, Lego pieces, if you will, that you can mix and match. So lots of ideas, but over time, each person is going to do a day that is meaningful for them. Retreat, this is the word that kind of trips people up a lot, because most people, when they think about a retreat, they think about going off somewhere to, indulge in some pampering and self-care and, going to a retreat center or spending a lot of money. And it doesn't have to be that at all. As a matter of fact, most of mine, every once in a while, I will go somewhere and spend money to maybe spend a night. But most of my personal retreat days are just a retreat away from my day-to-day routine, away from my to-do list, no commitments on the calendar on that day. And it's just a chance for me to retreat inward. So that's the other sense of the word retreat that I like to remind people. It's a retreat away from your normal day-to-day activity, and it's a retreat inside yourself to have those inner conversations that are really important to you. It's also a retreat ideally away from technology. So I try to leave the phone on do not disturb and not check email and just have that luxury of just being introspective and being with myself. So for me, it works best to have a personal retreat day alone. And then the third, I do want to define day, because people will think, oh my goodness, do you spend 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day, a full 24-hour day just on self-care and personal development? The answer is no. But what I like to do, Jean, is to have a day that I don't have any other commitments on the calendar, nothing that's going to pull me away or distract my mind from my intention of investing in my personal development and self-care. So whether those activities take 1 hour, 2 hours, 8 hours, it just varies, and it depends on your stage of life. So that's what I mean by a personal retreat day.
And as you were saying all those things, my mind is like, but you have to check your phone as soon as you get up, right? That's the American way. We react. We allow someone else to control us from the moment we wake up. And what if somebody needs me during that day when I'm supposed to be, focusing on me? Isn't that selfish to focus on me? I could be getting something else done instead of focusing on me. All of the self-talk that comes in and the guilt that I think females in particular can carry and can put on to something that should be a no-brainer. It sounds like a no-brainer, but things that come into the head make it much more of a resistance feeling.
There is a resistance. And I think that is so interesting because we have this mental battle going on. As you said, especially as women, we are the caregivers. We take care of things. We get the household run. We get the kids organized and the husband organized, or, whatever it may be. Even if you're single, you just have all your friends that you're keeping track of and the social calendar. But when it comes to ourselves, that's our most important relationship, Jean. And that's the one person that you're guaranteed to be with for the rest of your life is yourself. So whenever I encounter that very common objection that, oh, I feel guilty when I take time to myself, or could I be doing other things that would be more productive? My answer is always, this is the most valuable day that you will have in your month. If you're intentional about what you want to get out of this day, and that's some time in really reflecting on the past, learning from it, celebrating where you've been, celebrating even the smallest wins, will set you up for success. It will also help you recognize where you may be drifting off track. So after you reflect, what I recommend is reorienting. I use that word on purpose. It's like a compass. You want to make small changes just in the direction. Make sure that that compass is lined up to the direction you want to go. And if it's not, make those small adjustments so that you can get to your end goal. So whenever, again, I encounter these objections, I just remind people that this is an investment in your time. It's not spending time. When you think about it financially, when you're saving for your future and you're putting money into retirement, you're not spending that money. You're investing that money for the future. This is an investment of time, not an expenditure of time, and it will pay off dividends.
My head just keeps spinning with all the objections that I can hear. But one of the important things that you said that I say in a different way, but I seem to say it a lot with my clients, is keep your eye on what you want. And
absolutely
pay attention. Are you actually heading in that direction, or is the wind buffeting you somewhere else? And so you make little course corrections every day. And as long as you're heading in the direction that where you want to go, you keep getting closer. But if you take your eye off of that, it's going to take you that much longer to get there if you don't pay attention. If you don't pay attention to what your body's telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my clients are small business owners and they can get really stressed and they can forget just what stress can do to the body physically.
Absolutely. I have a story about that.
Go ahead.
Hang on. I can share. This actually was the origin of my practice. So in 2012, I was having a garage sale in Charlotte, North Carolina, on the hottest day of July. Smart move, right? It was about 100 degrees. And all of a sudden, Jean, I had this sharp shooting pain up the side of my neck where it felt like something I'd never experienced before. It felt like there was a hole in my artery going up to my head. And it was so unusual. My kids were preteens then, and I had the oldest call 911. My husband wasn't home. And I said, Lori, please call 911. Something's happening with mom. I need to go to the hospital. Went to the hospital. I remember that ambulance ride there, scared, didn't know what was going on. I remember my husband meeting me there. The doctor's doing some tests. Nothing seemed to be wrong. So they sent me home and had a cardiologist follow up the next day. Went to the cardiologist appointment, had the whole CT scan and everything. I remember the doctor looking across at me, eye to eye, and saying, here's your results. Everything looks great. Your arteries look great. Your heart looks great. Everything's normal. And I'm like, well, why am I experiencing this pain that comes and goes and, shoots up my neck and makes me panic at one point and then disappears? And he said, well, are you stressed about anything? What I didn't say in the beginning, Jean, is this was no ordinary garage sale. We were getting ready to move overseas, and we were selling about 95% of our worldly possessions in this garage sale.
Oh, wow.
So with all that had to be prepared for a move to a foreign country where we didn't really know a lot of people, we were moving into the unknown, away from everything that had always been comfortable, our world, away from family, away from our home, our friends. And yeah, it was a little bit stressful. So all of that to say, this was a manifestation in my body of all the stress that I hadn't been dealing with. And so when we moved to Europe, this is when I started doing this 1 day a month personal retreat day. And that became this transformational tool that I had to really step back, evaluate, was I taking care of myself, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, relationships, all the things. And it was this practice of looking back and looking forward and making sure I had that rhythm of rest, not just the once a month, but every week, every day, building that in. Over time, this rhythm, this monthly rhythm also became weekly and daily as well. So I know exactly what you're talking about. If we as busy entrepreneurs aren't taking care of the asset, our bodies, it's going to come out in ways. We'll find out from our bodies.
For some people, it seems to show up as not being able to sleep. My brain just won't shut off. I hear that. My brain just won't shut off, right?
I've had that too. Yeah.
Now, some of it's technology related, now they're saying green light in addition to blue light, you have to block that at least an hour before bedtime so that your circadian rhythm can start the process of allowing you to sleep. So there's all kinds of technologically driven reasons why we can't sleep, but most likely a large part of it is the internal stress and the internal dialogue and the arguing with ourselves and I must do this, I must do that, and I must do this. So we create internal pressure without understanding what we're doing to our physical self, right?
That's right.
So awareness is, again, the first part of any change that you may or may not care to make, right?
True, exactly.
Become aware and then decide if you're going to change certain parts of your life or not to help alleviate whatever stress you're bringing in.
That's right.
So what's been your most favorite retreat day?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think probably my favorite would have to be, ironically, during the pandemic, when it was probably April, because it's just been flashing back in my mind a lot this season. April of 2020 was a time where, of course, we were all scared and nobody knew exactly what this thing was, and we had to stay away from people. But I tried to, as much as possible, take advantage of something different and the time that we had. And I took many of my retreat days during those first few months of the pandemic in a park in Charlotte called Freedom Park. And just, I recall that one very vividly in April of 2020, because I was laying out on a blanket. I had my snacks, I had my water, I had my books and my journals, and just taking this extended time just to appreciate nature, to lay under a dogwood tree. It had to have been April because the dogwood tree was out, and just watch people walk by as they walked with their masks. And that one sticks out because it was so different. But all of them have been great in their own way. Yeah.
So if someone has never done this, how would you suggest they start?
Very gently. It depends on the type of person, but it seems like someone who would be drawn to a new method of personal development is someone who goes all in or tries to do too much at once. And that is the temptation. So you get excited about having your personal retreat day and you want to look back, and you end up looking back too far and then getting overwhelmed with the future. So my recommendation is, even though you have this tendency to want to review everything, set a lot of new goals, is just to take it really slow. Just look back at the previous month. Just look forward to the month ahead and make those small incremental changes. Over time, that becomes easier and easier because you really are just looking at 1 month at a time. And make sure that you just do some activities that bring you joy, that spark joy in your soul, that give you that rest that you need. Again, not just physical rest, but also rest for the mind and the soul. So what I like to do, I told you I have some ideas that are components, that are building blocks. There's a couple of suggestions that I'll give your listeners. One thing I like to do at the beginning of my personal retreat day is move. I used to call it exercise, but I don't anymore, because it's not that kind of exercise to get yourself exhausted. It's something that will bring energy, actually. So a mindful walk in nature, if it's a nice day, or some gentle yoga or stretching if the weather isn't cooperating. Those are the things that I like to do, just to get blood pumping to my brain. And then for me, an ideal time to do the mental work is in the morning. I don't, my energy wanes as I go throughout the day, but that's where the personal comes in. You have to know your rhythm of when is best for you to do all that mental work of looking back, reflecting, and then looking forward, planning. So then that's when I do those things, is kind of right off the bat after getting some exercise or movement. And then I do some reading, something inspirational. I might listen to a podcast. I might listen to some music that feeds my soul. And then I like to play. Sometimes I'll go to a park and swing on the swings like I'm a little kid again. So, or do something creative, like write a poem, or I am not an artist, but if you are, sketch or draw something that brings meaning. I have someone in my community that makes a collage every month. And she has, in her personal retreat day, she comes up with a word for the month and she makes a collage, and it's beautiful. So a couple of examples are on my Instagram page, but of her collages. So there's a million ideas, but that would be how I would start. Is just make sure that you have a restful activity, something that brings you joy, and don't try to do too much on that first personal retreat day.
Cool. You said a couple things. I always have to keep my mind on tracks because I'll forget what it was I wanted to say. But you were talking about things that bring you joy. And then you were talking about things that give you energy or use up your energy. And you mentioned reading. I think it's hilarious now that Kindle tracks how much you read on your Kindle app.
Uh-huh.
You know that, right? Well, I'm one of those people who have gone more than 3 years reading every week, and I've only missed like a couple of days. Out of the days that I've missed were days that I was at sea. We didn't have internet access.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because it's like a compulsion. I must read every day. I just that's the way I'm wired. But not everybody wants to read. Some people that irritates them.
Exactly.
I'm also a musician, so I play the piano or I listen to music or whatever, right? Some people don't get into music at all. I'm very centered when I'm around large bodies of water. That brings me joy to right?
You and I are very similar. Yeah.
Nature is another one. I live in a place where I have a huge pine tree. I'm like, okay, so if that would fall down, would it actually hit my house? Because it's way back in the backyard. But I look at it and I'm like, I can't even see the top of it. If that would that actually hit my house, you know? But I enjoy that. And we have hawks and I have all kinds of animals in my yard and I feed the birds and all that. So that
me too. We are alike.
Yeah. It's about time for the hummingbirds to come back. So that kind of gives you an idea of when we're recording this. But something I heard on another show, not one of mine, but another show was you don't get energy, you generate energy internally through your physiology, through your mindset, through actual movement, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
so
it.
It's just something to be aware of. If you feel like you don't have enough energy, change something. Get up and
That's right.
do 3 jumping jacks and then see if you have any energy, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
You know? But I thought that was pretty interesting. You don't get energy, you generate energy, or you don't.
Or you don't. That's right.
Yeah. So you decide if you need more energy, do something to create it.
That's right.
That was an interesting tidbit. So it just came to me while you were talking, so I threw it out there.
I love that. Yeah, I resonate so much with everything you just said. Everything from the things that bring you joy and energy. I agreed 100% with all of those. And then that's such a good reminder that we have the capacity and the capability to create our own energy. And if we don't like the energy that we have, just change something. That's a great tip. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people with similar interests are drawn to this podcast. You know, we're the energetic people, the creatives. If I don't like my world, I have the power to change it. People, that thing. You know.
Yeah. Great.
Do you actually keep to your schedule of once a month, or do you do it more often?
I do keep to it. And here's another tip for, I'm a freelancer. So I mentioned at the beginning that I'm in, my profession is in film and TV, and I'm a freelance location scout and production coordinator. So that means I'm either very, very, very busy or I'm not at all. So for people like me whose schedule changes all the time, it's tricky and difficult to stick to a set schedule for a personal retreat day, let's say on the first of the month or on the first Monday or the last Friday or whatever you want to do. So that's what I typically do is I'll schedule it on the first Monday of the month. And then if something comes up, I don't cancel it. I just reschedule it. So I've been pretty consistent over the 12 years. There were a few periods of time where I went several months without having one, and I could tell the difference. And so could my family. So since then, I've really worked hard to have it once a month. Sometimes it's like a half day instead of a whole day if I can't, it's just there was a time that I was working on producing some movies in 2022 where, literally I did not have any margin. So, I'd take a couple of hours on a Saturday, my day off, or a Sunday, and call that my personal retreat day. But I've been pretty diligent in keeping to it because I see how valuable it is.
So you mentioned something that I'm going to explore more, but I think it's a really important point. You said you schedule it. Does that mean you actually block it on your calendar so nothing else gets scheduled during that time?
Absolutely. Yes. I am blocking on my calendar. That's the only thing I put on the calendar that day. And if, if a job that I can't turn down comes up, that's when I'll reschedule, or that once in a lifetime opportunity. Otherwise, I tell this to people, and I try to do it. Practice what I preach is saying, hey, if this commitment is important enough for you to schedule it, treat it like you would and your most important client. You are the person that you're going to be spending the rest of your life with. So that is your most important commitment. So I'd really do put it on the calendar and stick to it that way.
That's something else that I'll have the conversation occasionally. You get to decide what your priorities are. You get to decide what your boundaries are. And the more you are true to those boundaries and the priorities you set, the better you're going to feel internally, because you know you've met your commitment that you placed on yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So making yourself less just to accommodate someone else may not really be in your best interest, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm learning that a lot over time as I grow older, giving myself the permission to say no. Just because somebody asks for my time or asks for my energy, I have the right to decide whether that's in my best interest and our relationship's best interest to move forward with that request.
And that can be so hard when you've not flexed that muscle before. Because again, I'm going to go from the female perspective, the guilt sets in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but they need me so desperately. Well, no, they don't. They just went and asked the next person down the list, and they helped them out. Oh, but I didn't help them when they need. Was it life or death, or was it a convenience?
Exactly.
That sounds funny, but it's a process we all go through as we're determining what we will and what we won't accept.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm.
Why were you in Europe? I'm just curious. Did you enjoy that experience?
I very much enjoyed the experience. We were there for 3 years in Lyon, France, and my husband was running an international ministry for English speakers that were living in France. So we were talk about giving a lot of ourselves. That's where this whole thing with the retreat day to fill my own cup, because I was giving a lot of myself to other people during those 3 years. It was a fantastic journey. When we moved, we didn't know if we would. There was a possibility that we would end up staying there for the rest of our lives. That's not the way it worked out, but we enjoyed every minute of our time in Europe and learned a lot.
Did you get to travel
there? Or we did. Yeah, we did. It was easier. I found it was a lot easier to travel within Europe once we were there, and cheaper. So we did have some short trips and took advantage of the lower cost of being over there to travel in between countries. So it was a great education.
Yeah, I lived in Italy for almost 5 years, and I traveled everywhere I could possibly travel over there.
Then. Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have the flight across the Atlantic to get there because you're already there.
You're already there.
A little short hop, skip, and a jump to whatever country you wanted to go to.
I know, and a nice rail system. So yeah, it was so fun. So much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you work with clients?
So most of my work is done by presenting to groups. I don't do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I have done a few, but I present to groups online and in person. So I've done some workshops, teaching them a little, going more in depth into the personal retreat day components and helping people design their own. That's where the one-on-one coaching comes in. Sometimes if people really have never done anything like this before and they want more help in customizing theirs, then we sit down together and I ask them, get to know them so that I can help them, nudge them towards a rhythm that will work for them. But most of it is done in a group setting. And I love teaching. So I feel like, I'm less of a coach and more of a teacher, more of a speaker. So I love to present to groups of all sizes.
Do you go into businesses and give presentations? Or is it...
So that's evolving. I've had, mostly it's been groups like I've done workshops at like tea rooms and yoga retreats, things like that. So a lot of did a women's conference in October. So it's been more along those lines, but that's kind of my evolution. I think I want to take it into more of a corporate setting, although, it just depends. It would have to be a business that would understand the value of this. Not every business thinks that an investment in their people is giving them permission to step away is a good thing. And I want to rewrite that story. No, you'll get so much more out of your employees if you allow them this time to do this. Yeah.
Well, when the first thing you said was yoga and tea rooms, those are people who are already in the self-improvement space in the energetic world, right?
That's right.
So they are already thirsty for that.
They are. They get it. They're just like, yes, I understand. I want this. Yeah. Yeah.
A tea room. That's cool. That's a cool.
Yeah. Did one last month on the first day of spring. It was perfect time to talk about, a new season of your life and what to do in this new season. It was first day of spring and it was in a wonderful tea room. We had we had one man and we had 11 ladies.
And that's the way a lot of these things work out.
Yep.
Unless it's a really well-known guy, even if females market to the feminine energy, I'll say, right? Mm-hmm. There are a few guys who want to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah.
So typically you can market to everybody, but some people draw more women to their programs, right?
Exactly. And I found that to be true for me, for sure.
Yeah.
That's my audience.
But it's not 100% female.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to say no to anybody, but yeah, that's my target typical audience would be female, busy women. Yeah. Who are looking to find more time for themselves.
So give me an example of a cool story for someone who's taken on this new philosophy of life.
Well, I have, people reach out to me on social media or through my newsletter, and they'll email me and just tell me, I've been doing this now. I attended your workshop at Creative Mornings, and I've been doing this for 5 months now, and it's just really transformed my life. And thank you. So I don't have a particular example in mind, but I do get that feedback that people that take this seriously and they do it month after month, a few months later, they'll usually reach out to me and just tell me how meaningful it was in their lives. So, um, another, I guess, some more feedback that I've gotten, came in the form of I designed a journal. One of the things that I recommend people do is record their insights from their reflection in journal form. Not everyone is a journaler, so I also suggest if you're more auditory, you can do voice recording, you can make that collage if you're creative, but capture it in some way, capture your thoughts and your reflections in some way. So I had someone who reached out to me and said, I would love to know what kind of journals you use. And at the time I was just like, I just use a spiral notebook, and I have the one spiral notebook for, my personal retreat day, that I keep aside, and it's not where I do my daily journaling, but it's the one I take month after month. But even at that point, it was so interesting when she reached out to me, because I had also had the thought, I'd love to design something where I'm, just more purposeful in how I capture my reflections. So maybe I should make some kind of spreadsheet or journal or something like that. So she and I talked a lot, and she helped me come up with a design of reflection questions, and took it to kind of a focus group of, I think it was 8 other women who'd been practicing personal retreat days and were big journalers. And so, I threw them some ideas, and after that, it came out, I did publish a guided journal for rest and reflection that's to be used only once a month. So it's not a daily journal, but it's just that place where people can capture their reflections, record what they did for rest and other activities during their personal retreat day, and also to help them plan the month ahead.
That's cool. Yeah, journals are really big right now. Journals and planners are really big. People are seeing the benefit of it and are actually promoting it so that other people can benefit from it. I have probably a dozen or more different journals, and some people will get a journal and they'll use it until it's done. And I'm not that way. I'm trying to different ones. And
which one speaks to me today?
Yeah. And, something like that. Typically, I'll use the same one for a few weeks, and then my focus will shift, and I'll like the cover of another one, or I want more detail, and that one makes my brain come up with more detail. Or I don't know. I have some that are probably 8 years old that aren't finished. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I'll use when I take different classes, sometimes I'll use specific journals, and I have tabs, so that I can have another class farther back and another class farther back. I like office supplies. What can I say? I love color Post-it notes, and I use those sometimes to mark pages, in journals, whatever. I'm drawn to colors. So anyway, that's cool. I got off on a tangent there, didn't I?
Yeah. No, I resonate with that totally.
So what's an objection you hear a lot? I know we kind of touched on what was going through my head as you were bringing it up. What are some of the objections you hear when you first start working with someone?
Well, I definitely hear the ones that we talked about, the guilt and the I don't have enough time or couldn't I be using my time more wisely? We kind of covered that. Another one that I hear is, I have young kids, I have commitments, I work, but especially the ones that have kids, that is so hard for moms to find time for themselves of any length. And the thought of a day where they get to be just by themselves is a foreign concept in those years. So what I suggest to those women who are caretakers of any kind, really, is try to find another mom that you can switch off with. Explain the concept to her, and a friend that gets it and wants to do it, that's a wonderful way for you to share this experience by trading your days off. You get their kids for a while, you have a play date, at your house, everyone's happy. And then the next time it's your friend's turn. So that's another common objection that I hear.
And for that mom, it might just be, I get the bathroom to myself for an hour.
Exactly.
I mean, it's amazing to me that, yes, the little kids don't want to be separated from their mom, but then the husband picks up on it. And he's at the bathroom door while she's trying to go to the bathroom. I'm like, leave her alone. What are you doing? It's not like she won't be out in 10 minutes.
Right.
The question could wait. But we set ourselves up for so much, I guess, because we need to be needed, or we want that proof that we are important to someone, that we are valued. So we allow our boundaries to be invaded.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's, those are we know the surface objections, but they're those hidden objections too, or the hidden resistance to it. And that's one of them, is like, who am I if I'm not being needed by somebody, right?
Yes.
That's something internally to reflect on. Another is people say, well, I'm an extrovert and I don't like being by myself. And, a lot of that is not really what the objection says it is, being an extrovert, but it's that fear of being alone with my thoughts. And what is that going to uncover? So sometimes the objection that's given, or the resistance that's given, the feeling of guilt, isn't exactly what it is. And so sometimes that reflection time will uncover some of those fears that we all have of spending time alone and spending time with our own thoughts.
That's huge. And I'm an energy worker, right? And sometimes the reasons why people are stuck in behaviors that don't make any sense, but they keep repeating them, is that they're getting something from it, right? Called secondary gains. So you don't understand why your body keeps allowing you to become sick. But you also, if you're not sick, you're going to take on more and more and more stuff. So your body has to get sick to tell you it's okay to say no to doing X, Y, Z. So looking underneath the surface can be really scary.
It can, yeah.
So when people start this, I could see where some people would have huge resistance to finding something else that's wrong with them. Right.
Right. I've had that resistance myself, Jean. I mean, there are some times where I'm like, oh, I have a personal retreat day scheduled and I don't want to do it. And I'm like, why? Why don't I want to do it? I know this is good for me. And I know I always feel it's kind of like exercise. Like, I don't want to do it, but I know I feel better afterwards. It's the same thing. It's just like mental work is sometimes, if you're facing something that you don't want to face that needs changing, the resistance comes up like, oh, I'll do something else instead. Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I can get really productive when there's something else I don't want to do. I can see that, oh, my house got cleaned, or I got all this work done over here, but I didn't do that tax stuff because I didn't want to.
I don't want to.
I'll get to it, but I've got to get all this other stuff done.
We're good at that, aren't we?
But I get really productive sometimes. That's funny. So we've talked a bit about personal retreat days and how they could benefit you, and how you might notice some resistance that just the noticing might be something to explore. So do you have some tools that maybe our listeners could utilize to start the process?
Actually, I do. I'm glad you brought that up, because I have a free resource that I like to share called an assessment grid. And it is I can't hold it up because I know some people are listening, but it is a grid. And on the first column, it has different areas of your life. If you were to, I know we're holistic beings, but if you were to, say we have a personal self, a physical self and a mental self, an emotional self, relationships, career, projects you might be working on. So it has all of these things listed. And then there are 4 things that it takes you through: a review of the previous month, what's going well, what's not going well, a brainstorming column where you can brainstorm ideas you might want to work on or need to work on in that area. And then a column that says choose. You choose one thing from that brainstorm list in each area. Maybe nothing, maybe it's status quo, but no more than one. And then the last column is planning out the steps. How am I going to make this change happen in the upcoming month? So it's a grid that incorporates reflection and reorientation. And anyone who's listening can just go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, and you'll automatically get a download for that grid.
Cool. And we'll put the link down below so that you can find it. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners before we wrap up here?
I think my just final thought would be just an encouragement to give it a try. And just set aside, I would ask all the listeners to just find a day on your calendar in the next 30 days that currently doesn't have any commitments on it, and write PRD, personal retreat day, on that day in your calendar, and just try it. Because I think once you do, you'll recognize and start to see, hey, there's a benefit to carving out this day for myself. It will help me professionally. It will help me personally. And so that's what I want to leave people with. Just give it a try.
Cool. Well, I want to thank Wendy so much for being here. It was a really cool conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean. I look forward to hearing more from you and from your listeners. Anyone who wants to reach out to me, I know you're going to put my information, my socials on your show notes. So I'd love to hear from anyone who has any questions.
Yeah, we'll have your Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I think that's where you are, right?
That's where I am.
And personalretreatday.com.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for being here. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to another episode with all of my special guests that I really enjoy. That generates energy in me. See? And this is your host, Jean Border, with another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast. Until next time.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast. Energy work to better your business. Hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey.